Thank you everyone for coming. My name's Oli from Blossom Coffee Roasters. Been there, done that was something I started in 2019. We did 2 events. We did one in Manchester and one in London. And the idea was to share a little bit about competing. It was a little bit nerdy. It was a little bit about how I prepared for competition, some of the advice I've been given. I've done okay. I've never done as well as some of the people on the stage, which is why they're here, for me to thrust the microphone upon instead of just hear from me. But we've, with the help of the SCA, we've tried to make this a bit of a bigger event. I don't want an event to be about me and my experience. Sharing how we've all got to where we've got to, and sharing that knowledge for free, I think is an important part of being in a community. So we couldn't do this evening, or London, or Bristol, which we all have planned in, without the help of the SCA. So there's a couple of people that I'm going to introduce now. We've got the SCA and some of the sponsors that are here. Cam or some of the people here may have explained the sticker situation. We are not very, very excited to be just smashing stickers all over each other. The idea is that if these stickers are on a human being, they say something about what they've done. So it could say that they've coached, it could say that they have judged. Please use these as a beacon to come talk to us. We're all nice people? Yeah, we're all nice people. But we're here to, when I do coffee training, I use a phrase, no stupid questions. Like, there is nothing weird that I've not heard before. If there's something that you've really wanted to know about competing, whether it's from a volunteering perspective, whether it's from a machinery perspective, from a coaching, judging, whatever it might be, just come chew one of our ears off. We're here to help. So there's a couple of people that I want to just pass the microphone over just so they can introduce who they are. And this is an opportunity for you to know who they are so you can go grab them politely and friendly, not weird, after we've finished up here. So first person I'm going to introduce is Cam.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming. So happy to see so many of you here. It's really exciting because this is really for you. I'm community coordinator for SCA UK, and this is an amazing event to do. I knew about Oli's event that he did, and we were talking about what can we do for you. We want to engage you. How do we get more people interested? How can we answer the questions? And it is by bringing everybody here today. So as you said, please, I do encourage you, come and talk to us. We've all got nice green stickers. And there's obviously, to create these kind of events, we need so many moving parts. Yes, we need you. But we also need great organization. We've got the most decorated, please come up here, Graz. He's got the most decorated sticker man here tonight. And he's going to introduce himself as well in a second. And we have Rob, our national coordinator, here as well from SCA UK. And he is doing all the tech today, which is wonderful. We couldn't stream this online without his support either. I'm just going to pass on the microphone to Graz.
Thank you very much, Cam. Evening all, it's great to see you all here. My name is Graz. I obviously am with the committee with these guys. My specific job within the committee, as Cam alluded to, is events. So I run events from the planning, the scheduling, helping out with the logistics and finding venues, etc., to run the event on the day. As has been noted, I'm the man with all the stickers as well. Come on! So please, I'm going to echo Camilla's words. Come and talk to us. Whether you want to volunteer, compete, or just ask questions, knowing when and where some of the heats are, or what the plans are, do come and talk to us. Particularly around the volunteering bit, I was talking to some of you earlier on, and competition could be daunting for some people. The not knowing, the not understanding, the all cameras and someone with a microphone and the judging, the whole thing. So volunteering is a great way to get introduced to what it looks like, and then some guys in the past, and some of you hopefully, we then realize, "Oh, yeah, I can do that. Or actually it's not for me, which is also okay. But please do get involved. The amount that you get out of it, either way you want to go, it's unmeasurable. Okay, so I'll be around. I'm gonna pass on the microphone to these guys. By the way, they do all these jobs better than me. So have a great evening, first of all. Thank you very much.
So once again, as I said earlier, these events couldn't happen without the amazing support of sponsors. So these are amazing businesses who invest in these competitions. And who shall I introduce first? I think we have to start with Steve. Steve from Kimberley.
That brings so many memories with this microphone, sorry. All right, hi guys. I'm Steve, working for Kimberley, which is the sponsor for the coffee machine, as you probably know. I'm here to answer any question about the coffee machine, all right? Anything, so I don't have as many stickers, sorry guys. But I have the knowledge a little bit of backstage and all the specs of the coffee machine. So feel free to come and ask anything about this coffee machine. In terms of Kimberley, if you don't know about it, that is a company that started in 1912. We are making coffee machine for more than 100 years. All right? No, don't worry, it's okay, no problem. So we know what we're doing. All right. We probably know in the UK mostly for the super automatic machine, but we don't talk about that in a competition. Sorry, guys, you will have to use the traditional machine. And what we have in the competition is the M200, which is, I believe, everyone who's seen this one. That's the latest model for Kimberley. So. Yeah. Come. All right.
Okay, we're going to have my buddy Jim come up from Malconic.
Hello, everyone. My name's Jim. I'm here tonight to represent Malconic Grinders. We've got the E80 Supreme over there, which is one of the most kind of popular grinders coming out at the moment. And also we represent the EK43 grinder, I think a lot of you are familiar with as well. So I'm here to represent Malconic from a company called the Brewitt Group. We import quite a few of these brands and then sell to the coffee roasters. So we've got a lot of experience within roasters, coffee, and within the competition over the years as well. So please come and have a chat to us and ask me some questions, and we'll go from there. Thanks very much.
Aaron, it's your moment. It's your big moment.
Hi everyone, my name's Aaron. I'm the coffee buyer for Grumpy Mule, so we're the roaster sponsor. I'm quite happy to tell everyone I do believe I only got the job I've got because of competition, because it forced me to learn at a really highly accelerated rate so you don't look stupid in front of people. So I'm a massive, massive advocate for competition. Come and have a chat with me if you want to talk anything about competition coffee, where you get it from. We have a good, exciting opportunity this year for first-time competitors, along with someone who's going to speak very shortly. So there is the chance of getting some very good competition coffee from us if you were struggling to find some, or even if you just want advice where to get it from. More than happy to help. So thank you. Come and chat.
And that's a nice segue for Howard.
Thank you very much. My name is Howard. I don't work for Olam Specialty Coffee. I work for Kavoya Coffee, because 2 weeks ago we changed our name. So Kavoya Coffee, the new name for Olam Specialty. We'll send you a sticker or something to sort that out. We export and then import specialty coffee, and we work with great coffee roasters such as Bewley's and Grumpy Mule as well. And so the offer is an extension of great coffees, absolutely coffees that would do you proud in competition to be used. As such, what I should say as well is we got some very, very expensive coffee, a fantastic brewer, someone who finished third in the World Barista Championships, all to brew you some very good coffee and some very, very bad coffee. So very expensive coffee brewed very badly on purpose Diana will reveal more later if you haven't already. Yes. So that's that. And I think there was a question about ask me about. You wanted. So ask me about competitions back in my day. Okay. Yes. So yes. Who would we like now? All good.
Panicking, I've missed someone. There is one person I want to say one more thank you before we crack on with the panel, and that's Joey for giving us this amazing space, running around finding things for everyone. Found me scissors before and with 0 questions, so thank you. We appreciate it. Tahi is open till kitchen's till 9:30, bars till later. So if anyone they've had too much coffee and they want a glass of wine or a beer, go see Joey. Well, don't see Joey. I think he's had enough. Someone else will look after you. Okay, let's get going. So thank you to all the sponsors. Thanks to everyone. We are going to get stuck into it. We have 1 microphone short of the amount of people that we have on here, so there's going to be a few microphones getting thrown around. I'm going to pass it on to the more important people, I think. So we're going to just start with everyone just sort of introducing themselves. You may know some of these people already, but if you don't, if you'd just like to introduce yourselves to everyone, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Hi, my name is Deanna. I've been in coffee for about 20 years, and I'm OG a bit as well. Competed in, participated in a lot of competitions and judge now quite a lot as well. So if you've got questions about any of that, of course, I'm happy to chat. Yeah.
My name's Will. I work for Tales of Harrogate.
You might recognise that voice from the Dreamiest Coffee podcast that recently launched.
I have a coffee podcast.
Yes, he does.
I work for Tales of Harrogate. We do some fancy coffees. We do some normal coffees. I've done the Barista Championship twice. I've done cup tastes a couple of times. I judged a heat of Brewers Cup. And I hosted a heat of Brewers Cup. So, talk to me about those things.
Talk to you about hosting. I think you're the only host here, maybe. One of the only hosts here. Claire?
I think Gratz has that as well. You just have a sticker for it. Can't have all the stickers.
Oh, I should probably introduce myself. Forgot about that.
Who are you?
I'm Oli. I've been in coffee for 10 years this year. Weirdly, the guy talking about competitions has done okay at it, never that great. I've competed 3 times and coached a few times. I'm very passionate about this side of it and the community bits, which we'll get into as we get into the talk. I feel like there's a lot of fringe benefits from competing. I'd probably say there's maybe 20% of this room I met through competing, which is just really wholesome. So we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Hi, I'm Claire. Thanks. That's my name. I've competed in more competitions than I can count on both hands, but probably the one I've done the most is the Barista Championship, which I won this year, and then I'm going to Worlds.
I can. Cool. Come chat to me about Worlds, about Barista Champs, about AeroPress Champs, if that's your jam. Coffee Masters, sorry, it's an SCA event. Sorry, mostly Barista Champs. I'm going to pass that on now.
Can we all just note that Claire finished 3rd in the world this year?
Hi everyone, I'm Rosa. I work for the Gentlemen Baristas in London, and I recently coached her for the competitions. I've competed myself in barista brewers and cup tasters. And I have also judged Brewers Cup.
Okay, so we've covered who you are. The next question was supposed to be like, what have you done? I think we kind of covered that a little bit in the intros. To try and give you a bit of a feel of how I want this evening to go and the tone of it, what's the worst thing you've ever done? whether that's on the stage, whether that's preparing for competition, whether that's an error of judgment, because we often share the things that we do really well. To get there's so many terrible decisions. And I think if you've never competed before, we get fixated with watching these unbelievably well-polished routines. Claire and I were chatting earlier about seeing people training insanely hard and doing like more than you think you've done, but they're not going to put on the internet the time they like physically dropped something or made the worst tasting milk drink you've ever tasted, or yeah, we've all done some pretty bad things. So covering what we've done badly as much as what we've done well is important. And it's funny.
Yeah, so I think first or second year I did BCs, so it's 2014-ish. I had this great idea of making this like signature drink where they'd like have the signature drink in parts. So they'd have an espresso with sugarcane and lime. It was this whole like cafe cubano thing. I don't even know. But the thing was that when I got in front of the judges, I obviously got very nervous and I completely forgot to tell them about the sugar part of it. So they ended up having an espresso with just lime, which is really not good. And one of those judges became my employer later on in life, so that never left when I talked to Tolly about it.
I have two awful things. One of them I actually did, and one of them I thought about doing, and then got told it was a horrendous idea. The worst thing that I actually did was instead of serving the judges 3 drinks, I served them 5 drinks, just to make things harder for myself, and so that every time I did a run through, it was another 8 cups to wash up.
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't competed, the washing up is one of the worst things about it. Please get a good friend to come and help you that loves washing up.
And then my other awful idea, which I put forward to somebody else, and they were like, well, this is stupid, was in every barista championship routine, there's always that moment where you say, and the little pots in front of you are for your used spoons. And I thought, like, how can we spice it up? How can we make it an engaging and an exciting, interesting thing for the judges? And I was like, what if you just say, when you're done with your spoons, throw them over your shoulder? And, like, you know, let's have a bit of fun. And then I was reminded, maybe you might lose some marks on professionalism.
Who would have cheered at the idea of a spoon getting launched? I would have, yeah, I'd have loved it, mate. I'd have loved it. I've made some awful signature drinks. A lot of my friends who are it's mostly in sig drinks, so sorry. I made, if anyone likes tea, I made a Lapsang tea syrup, and Lapsang can just taste like cigarettes. And I made one and then couldn't drink anything else for about 2 hours because all I could taste was like I'd licked an ashtray. That was awful. If anyone who's into cocktails, I read on the internet that you can use aquafaba, which is the liquid that's in chickpeas, as an egg replacement because egg whites kind of add texture. So basically made like a hummusy tasting coffee. I literally gagged. It was one of the worst things ever.
That smells like a wet dog.
It's not good. No. Don't recommend. I think the vegans amongst us will know better what to do with that. I did not know what I was doing. And then I should speak of the first time I competed. I was 6 seconds from being disqualified as I went 54 seconds over time. But I distinctly remember looking out to everyone going, so still doing a nice little chat at the end, and there was just these horrified looks of like, finish! Still didn't do terribly, but don't go over time. Have a timer. That would be my advice.
TLDR. I've done so many awful things I can't even remember half of them because I've blocked them out because they were so bad. I put soy sauce in my sig drink once, thought that was a good idea. It was really disgusting.
It was awful.
It was awful. I think my first round of Worlds will follow me to the day I die because everything went wrong. Because I dropped a port filter in my prep time. Then I almost slipped on the floor, which you can hear me go on the actual soundtrack. And then I just didn't tamp any of my signature drink shots. And then the camera zoomed in on like Niagara Falls, coming out with all 3 of my port filters. And I just was like, yep, that's what you're getting served
I
now.
was literally dying in the audience at this point. I was like, did she just not tamp those shots?
Yeah, and then I didn't even realize I'd not done it. So I was like, oh, I need to make my grind finer. So I made my grind, yeah.
I think for me, it was the first year I competed. I had absolute no idea what I was doing with my signature beverage. It was disgusting. I used Brazil nut infusion, and then when I was putting it in, it just went everywhere. And then I also used tarragon, and French tarragon is very overpowering. And then the judges were like, yeah. And I was like, but it created this flavor. They were like, no, tasted like tarragon. I was like, very little points. So yeah, those are the bad things. But there is a lot of other things. But we really did.
So the easy segue from that is, what's the best thing you've ever done? So what's there could be a moment, again, we're looking at different people from coaching to judging to competing. I think different moments kind of stand out. For me, I had a friend of mine who couldn't be here this evening, who talked about competing and wanted to compete and was just like, I'm going to do it. And watching them compete on the stage, they were competing really early. It was in Bristol, and I overslept, panic woke up and watched it on the live stream one eye open. And I remember beaming the whole way through, because I remember we'd worked on the speech, and it was just first time competitor, absolutely crushed it. It was unbelievable, and I was so chuffed. And that person has gone on to do exceptionally well in their career. I don't know what's going on. Oh my God, this is happening. So I'm glad I didn't get the head mic. I think you can wear this better, champ. So that was great. The last time I did this talk in 2019, a gentleman who sat over there said, I'm going to compete, and said forward, a week later, you competed. Can you remember that? And again, just one of those moments. So it was just super. Yeah. So just I've had more joy from other people's success in competition, and Will and I worked on some of his routine for last year, and seeing him absolutely smash it and come second was magic. And seeing the splitter in use will be forever. And seeing the splitter go to Worlds was weirdly satisfying for a small piece of plastic from the internet. But yeah, weirdly, most of the things that I'm more happy with are things that have happened for other people. What's some good stuff for we can go to Will. We're going to go to Will.
I can go. I'm gonna do two again, because the first one is the same answer. Serving 5 drinks instead of serving 3. It was great. It didn't really help me score any more points, but I felt great because I felt like I was really telling this story. I was so invested in it. I was like, let's taste the coffee over the years. So it felt good, and I think that made me do better. And then the other thing was just chatting with you on Instagram, and you were like, if I compete next year, I'm so going to use this thing for my signature drinks. And I was like, too late, Ollie, I've bought it now. And it was a week away from the competition, and it arrived. And I think I sent you a video of me pouring water through it into wine glasses in my kitchen.
I was so stressed. I was like, this is not happening.
And I was like, I think I'm going to do it. And then semi-finals, pulled my clipboards away. It was there. I was already 10 seconds over. Just threw the signature drink through it, and I was like, there you go, thank you, time.
If any of you are invested, if you can go back on the internet and watch Will's semi-finals and finals, it's one of my favourite things in competition history in the maybe the UK one. There is an audible gasp when Will uses it, and if you listen for it, it's so satisfying. There's a kind of a ooh as it happens, and I maybe was part of that oohing. So thank you for sharing. We're going in a different order now. So are you on?
I don't. Maybe.
You are very on by the sounds of it.
Oh God. Okay. Well, this is terrifying again. I've forgotten the question. Best thing. Not worst. The worst is too many. It's probably too broad of an answer, but the best thing that I could have done with competition was try and get myself involved with as many of the stages of my coffee's journey as possible, because that, I wanted to learn more about how it was roasted, and then I wanted to learn more about where it was sourced, and then I wanted to source it myself, and just push myself to try and get involved with as many of those pieces as possible. Because not only does on stage that make you sound much more authoritative, because you know what you're talking about, but it also helped me shape where I wanted to take my career, because I learned much more about all these different areas of the industry, and I was like, that's a bit of me, I'll go that way. So I didn't necessarily roast it all straight away or source my own coffee straight away, but by getting involved with as much of it as possible, it pushed me in the direction to where I am now.
I think for me, the best thing is, well, first of all, to even do it, right? But as a competitor, I think that when I was getting ready for the Cup Tasters World Championships, one of the things that I think was like that I really put everything into it. And then when I went to the Worlds, I had a feeling that like I could have not given any more than that. So I actually I think that there is a lot of talk about like how much investment you have to do and so on and so forth. But I think that my experience going to the Worlds 2018 then helped me as a coach when I was coaching Claire, because when she would be, going and saying like, oh, I don't want to do this, I was just like, no, you do want to do this, because you want to have like my experience from that, like literally putting all and everything into it, and then doing it for someone else was, I think that was like a good experience.
Okay, so I've got two, right? One from a judging perspective. We've got a theme over here. We're sticking to it. Yeah. And one from a competing perspective. So we'll start with the competing one. So back in 2017, I decided to compete in every competition I could, which ended up being like 10 in 9 months, which was mad, but great. That's not the great part. The great part was I went through a breakup, and literally within a few days, I had a Coffee and Good Spirits that I needed to get on stage and do. And I had no routine because I was like sitting there in my bed all sad. And it's true though. And so my friend Kuba, he was like, no, this is not Diana, get up. And I was like, no, but he's get up. And I was like, all right. So he's like, I'll meet you in the training center at 12. And we literally had like 24 hours to put together a routine. So I went and I found like some alcohol and some materials and some things. And I knew the coffee I was going to use because I had it. And literally threw this routine together. And I had so many people around me that I was just really warmed by like their support. Everyone around me, like the Taylor Street baristas at the time, they were like, let's do this. They showed up the day after when I'd done this like run through at midnight once. We rock up and everyone's just like, come on, go on. And I just thought, if I just get through this, the fact that I got up and kept going, that will be enough, And I did. And when they called my name to go to finals, I nearly cried. I also didn't realize they were calling my name. I do remember, there's probably a video of this, of me just like not knowing where to walk. But that's probably the most epic thing, because I then had to obviously kind of crack on. But then I went back to the training center to design the Irish coffee that I still hadn't designed that night. And then the next day coming back, literally all of Taylor Street was there. They were all just shouting. All of the people around me had been so incredible, and I ended up placing third that year. That's the best thing. So I guess then from a judging perspective, it's a really different side. But probably the best thing was I had I knew a judge on the team with us, and she was really nervous. And the best thing in the world was to be able to be there for her and to help her know that she has the skill. And now I'd say she's one of the best judges we have. So that's the best thing as a judge, is actually just being able to kind of be that person for someone in their journey. Yeah.
I think it's really telling that a lot of people's best moments are with other people. I don't know why I'm holding this so close to my mouth. That was weird. I think seeing other people around you, whether it's immediate friends or people in the community, succeed. I know from watching Claire and Sierra compete at Worlds this year, a lot of my friends were like, wherever they were like, I'm just going to go watch this on the live stream. This is like, in any other world, that'd be a weird thing. I'm going to go watch my friend do their job in another country. Like, we're all paid to make coffee for a living, and we're just going to watch our friend make coffee for a living. But how invested you get, and like we were joking before, watching someone compete, my palms immediately get sweaty. I'm like more stressed than they are on stage, because you're thinking about, oh, is it going well or whatever. But the investment you have in other people, I think, is important. I'm going to pull like two questions into one. So one of the questions was, what's been a valuable part of your competition journey? So what it's been valuable for you. But I'm going to also tie that in because we're talking a lot about, like you just mentioned about Taylor Street and like your employer. I think something that we should probably touch on if you are thinking about competing is the effect that that can have for your company, the effect that that can have for if you're a barista in a cafe. Let's like use a very specific example. If you're a barista in a cafe and you volunteer, you are surrounding yourselves with some of the best baristas in your area, potentially in the country. You might be, helping clean away the trolley of the next UK barista champion, which sounds a bit silly, but like being around that person and listening to them be passionate is hopefully that gives you 1% of their passion to take into your cafe. If you got into judging, I think tech judging is something a lot of people, if they're working in a cafe, is a very good entryway into competing. A lot of the training that I do at Blossom is based around, sounds a bit lame, but around the score sheet, encouraging people to prepare the portafilter in the same way that it would be on stage. But the companies that I've worked for and when I have entered a competition have been incredibly supportive. And that is, for everyone on here, you may be aware of them from what they've done in the competition circuit, but you'll then be aware of their business or their colleagues' business or the other people. So I think just sort of trying to discuss a little bit about how that's maybe affected you or the companies that you work for, how that helps, if that's a clear enough question. I think it's sort of a multi-question. Whoever wants to go first, I'm not looking. Claire, you can go now because I'm going this way. Yeah.
I have no idea if this is on. I'm just going to project. What is happening with this? I'm just speaking to all of them at once.
It's because you didn't tamp, I think.
It's because I didn't tamp. It's going to follow me until I die, I swear to God. I've had so much value come out of competition. I'll start with personally, I suppose. Not even just the winning part of it, because the vast majority of the time I compete, I don't win. I won once. Just once out of all of the times. But every time I do it, I think the community aspect and the meeting people so I'm from Scotland and moved to London sort of 4 years ago. I wouldn't have got the job I got in London if I hadn't met the people I'd met competing in Scotland and then managing to get to the finals and coming to London and meeting people. I built a massive professional network just by even being there. And I volunteered at stuff as well, and that's also built me a professional network that encouraged me to compete in the first place.
That's
so
100% how we first met.
Yeah,
I think it's
I
through
met you
competition.
because we competed together.
Yeah.
100%. I think I met all of you competing, actually. Every single one of you.
It's terrible. How to make friends and influence them, or whatever that thing is.
So yeah, out with the winning, the people you'll meet can shape your entire future career in coffee. It's pretty valuable. And in terms of the businesses that I've worked for Brewlab Coffee in Scotland, which is where I did a big chunk of my competing there, and then obviously Assembly Coffee in London. When I won the UK's, my marketing person from Assembly texted me being like, we just got 1,000 new followers on Instagram, I'm so confused. Yeah, their Instagram went so even just from like a crass sort of Instagram follower perspective, they got, because Assembly was linked to my victory, people were like, oh, what's this about then?
I think that's an important thing to share with your employers should you wish to compete. There is loads of, and we'll talk about it later, but there's loads of support for coffee. Everyone here, machinery, everyone here is able to support you. But if you're able to give that time, and it's not for everybody in terms of actually physically competing, but being part of the competition circuit, I genuinely believe will open a door. It might not open the door that you expected. You might get to just meet someone that you become good friends with, and there's also some value there. For me, it very much verified the things that I thought there was some value in doing it, and I've seen that value sort of repaid, I think. What do you think, Roosa?
Yeah, I think for me the value is obviously meeting a lot of people and making the connections. Like specifically when you're at the backstage, the vibes that you get from there, like I do know that I was just earlier saying that I didn't even know my own name at the backstage when she was competing, but you do get to be part of that backstage crew, and then a lot of the people who are competing or like once the competition evolves there's a lot of good connections that you can make from there, whether they are potentially your clients or a connection next year in the competitions. Like, I used to work for a company called Kiss the Hippo, where I was with Joshua Talo and Paul Ross. Paul Ross won that year, and I was part of the like getting ready for the competitions with them, and I also got to learn more about the competition roasting and like generally just like a complete new way of looking into things. But also, I think for me, I mean, I have to say it. When I was at my World Championships, I was in Brazil, and when I was coaching Clare, we were in Melbourne. So you also potentially can get to travel, which is a great thing. And then when it comes to the for the companies and everything, I think that there is a lot of value in there, because if you succeed, your company automatically succeeds. Like if you look at, like, for example, the top of the, like, who plays first or who plays second or third in the World Championships, you always look into those companies, like where do they work, whose coffees they buy, who are they associated with. So I think in that sense, it's hard for company to see that when the person goes and starts competing. But then at the same time, like when you think about certain companies, they wouldn't be known unless the people working for that company would have not been competing. So I think that there is a lot of benefit from competition, not just you personally, but also for the company that you are working for.
I think just to echo a conversation we had, that something you told me about being in Melbourne that I didn't know. Also the producers of some of these incredible coffees. There's probably like 10 producers that you would see or you would expect to see at the Worlds, or at least maybe certain areas, certain farms or something. But something I didn't know, you mentioned that you use Mauricio Chattar's coffee I've used, and the first time I ever made finals with Mauricio's and what Will used in the UK BCs. And I'll let you sort of mention this, but you mentioned that Mauricio was there in Melbourne.
Yeah, that was amazing. I never had the producer of the coffee that I was making watch the routine, and I obviously wasn't sitting in the audience with him. But you always kind of wonder whether the producer of the coffee you're using actually cares what you're doing. But
yeah, I think that in Mauricio's case, his coffee has never been in the finals. So this year, like, because they were in Melbourne and I would be like going through the whole thing with them, they would be like waving UK flags and everything. We were like, yeah. And then when Claire got announced third, he was literally like sharing tears, and he was just like so like overwhelmed of the experience. So in that sense, it's also not just for the company, for the competitor, but also potentially for the farmer. So like when you, like, because I think that like the question came from that, like when a competitor says like, oh, I'm using XYZ coffee and blah, 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 blah. Like you never know, like you obviously want to do the best justice for that coffee. And I mean, Claire did amazing justice for Mauricio's coffee. And I mean, you too as well. But it's just, yeah, I think that there's a lot of benefit in there when it comes to competitions and producers and so on and so forth.
Will?
Yeah, I think everyone's mentioned the sort of social aspect, you know, the sort of you're surrounded by other people with the same interests as you. And coffee's a really small niche industry, right? So for example, first time I competed 2017, Leeds Heat. Before I was competing this year, I looked back on the video and I saw in the background that like Aaron was there on the Grumpy Mule thing, like serving coffees. And I didn't know Aaron at the time, but I know Aaron now. And I was like, God, it's such a small world. And you do make all these little connections. And like, you know, I emailed you, I emailed Aaron, I emailed about 7 people and was like, hey, do you want to take a look at my script? Like, give me some feedback. And it's a good industry in that we're not really all in competition with each other. Okay, some people might be trying to steal each other's wholesale accounts, and that's not cool. But you know, we are an industry of people who love coffee and want to grow a community, so that's great. And also, it's a pressure cooker. Like the rapid advancement of your skills and abilities as a general barista, but also to tick a very specific lots of things on the score sheets comes along so quickly because you're like, that date is coming up. And competition's broken me. Like every time I go to pull an espresso now, I've got the portafilter, wipe the top, wipe the spouts, and
Yeah,
it's
it's an
like
illness.
I never did that behind the bar. but now I'm like gotta wipe them spouts with my fingers.
I have literally done this in training. I've been like, so you might see me wipe the spouts. You don't have to do that. I just can't not do it. Because the first time I competed, Estelle and my friend Hannah were tech judging me. And I remember one of the clearest things was, please wipe your spouts. And I was like, but nobody does that. Like, that's unhygienic. But you need to, because it's on the score sheet. Please read the score sheet.
Yes.
Tiana, I think.
Yep, I think just kind of on the back of what everyone said. So definitely travel's cool. When I won roasting, I got to go to Taiwan. That was amazing. Community is massive, and actually with roasting, community is really cool because roasters we all kind of stay in. We don't get out as much as some baristas. So like roasting competition, it's like, oh, you all get to hang out and talk about things that no one else wants to hear about, but you're really interested in, that's kind of a roasting thing. Like, oh, what is the thermodynamics of it, right? So that's fun. And then, like learning massively, learning and like going for like those ideas that you would never get to do on a bar, but you get to do somewhere and someone is going to listen and taste it and enjoy it, which is amazing. So, yeah.
Cool. So the next question is going to be a two-parter. So it's how can people do what you do? So that could be your job or what you have done in competition. So how can you get into competing? How could you get into judging? How could you get into coaching? And then why should people do that? I think we've kind of touched on these a little bit in other things, but for me, I guess if you're coming at it from a barista competitor and coach, I think just being available for people is hugely important. I remember chatting with Sierra on WhatsApp. I'm mentioning Sierra like you all know who Sierra is. Sierra is the UK Brewers Cup champ, and her Worlds routine is phenomenal. It's one of the best, we won't talk about other things, but like her actual performance on stage was, I reposted on my social media saying this is a masterclass in performing and score sheet. So if anyone's interested in Brewers Cup, please watch that. Hopefully Sierra's going to join us at the London date because she's a bloody legend. So see you there. That's weird. You're not there, but I'm going to do that. Broken the fourth wall. It's like Fleabag. And yeah, so just being available. She videoed her routine and sent it to me on WhatsApp. And I can't taste the coffee, but I was like, okay, there's a moment there where I feel like you could maybe deliver that piece of information while you look at Judge 1. And then you could do that at Judge 2, and you could look at that at Judge 3. And I just picked up on that from looking at it, but I was like, I love the fluency, and sometimes just being a hype squad, like, wow, that was amazing. I can't wait to see you do that. I wish I could taste that coffee. I never got to taste that coffee as well, and it sounded outrageous, so it also made me a bit mad. So yeah, just being available to people I think is really important. You might have a skill set that isn't specific to competition, so it could be just reading through things for someone or like soundboarding something. I'm very good with ideas. If someone's like, I kind of want to do something, I'm like, well, what do you want to do about that? We spoke about your script and just basically going, is that on the score sheet? Is that, especially when you want to serve like 19 coffees, which is what you do. And then in terms of how can you do barista comp, we've all sort of talked about it today and maybe individually with people. The first time you compete is the best time because you just go in there, you've got a tasty coffee that you think is really delicious, and you get to stand on stage and make it for 4 people that are willing you on to do a good job. And you've got 0 benchmark. So basically, the first time I competed, I was like, as long as I don't come last, I'll be relatively happy. And I was 6 seconds off being disqualified for going over time. And I finished 18th in the country that year, which is kind of ridiculous when I think about it. But I didn't know what I was doing. Your coach, Nicola, bailed me out because it says you have to have napkins when you compete. It says it on the score sheet. I turned up with like 99p Wilkinson's napkins in like a horrible plastic bag. And she was like, what are those? And And I was like, it's napkins. It says you've got to do napkins. And she was like, no. Gave me these beautiful, like, John Lewis napkins or whatever they were. And I was on before her. And then the judges all I didn't tell them to put their dirty spoons in. So they smashed this dirty coffee spoon onto the napkin. So she had to, like, have them folded over the other way. Thanks, Nick. You saved me. But yeah, like, I don't really know where I was going with that weird anecdote, but just kind of being on stage and doing it for that first time. I was getting feedback from incredible judges that I really look up to. And the second time I competed, I made finals. And then the third time I competed, I made finals. And there's just no way, like, anyone who goes from never competing to finals first time, I'm terrible with names. There's a dude who did it last year who just crushed it.
Ross McIntyre.
Ross. Shout out to Ross.
Shout out Ross.
One of the most calm and collected competitors I think I've ever seen. And was just like, yeah, I've got a good coffee and I'm going to do a good job. And, like, he could have won. You know, he was insane. But having that zero pressure, so I just want to reinforce that. If any of you thinking about doing any competition, whether it's BCs, brewers, SIGs, anything, just do it. Like, the worst thing that could happen is that you have a great time, I think. What are your thoughts on that, Will?
Yeah, so to reiterate, the question is...
how can people do what you do, and why should they do what you do? Thank you. I forgot myself.
In terms of, like, competition, I agree. It's like, just get stuck in and give it a go. So I've competed twice. First time I competed, I just said to my boss, Casper Atkinson's, I was like, I might give the old Barista Championships a go. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, you should definitely do it. He'd done it a few times. He'd judged. And he was like, you know, we've got some nice coffees coming in. You can use one of those. And I gave it a go. And in such a short space of time, like, you know, it was a crazy emotional ride. But I think after that competition, I was like, I've learned so much about myself and, like, how I deal with pressure, those sort of things. And they're, like, really awesome skills to learn for the investment of your time and hopefully a company that will help support you with a little bit of equipment and things like that. Career-wise, coffee's a sort of big mysterious industry in how, like, nobody never knows how to get into jobs as like a coffee roaster. And it's all about, like, coming to events like this, talking to people and getting to know, like, how they got to where they were. Like, I didn't go to university. I just worked, like, full-time in hospitality. I ended up managing cafes. And then, like, no one is going to back you if you don't back yourself.
Yeah, truth.
So I was like, I really want to get into roasting. Where's the opportunities? I saved up some money. I did, like, an SCA roasting course. And I was like, okay, I've got a bit of confidence here. Then you can sort of maybe apply for jobs that require a little bit of experience. And then it's all about just going for it and, you know, really backing yourself where you can. And then, you know, a lot of people are not going to like to hear this, employers, but, like, sometimes you've got to hop from company to company to climb the ladder.
I guess, yeah, if that company isn't the trajectory that you want, right? So if you were a senior barista, you might not get the opportunity to roast. If you are a production roaster in a very, very established, very large roastery, it would be difficult to be head of coffee. No shade around this. I used to work for a very, very large company, and there probably wasn't the same forward trajectory from where I'd got. And now I'm part of a much smaller company, but we have much more say on what's going on. So Josh and I can talk about the kind of coffees I'm involved in, quality control. We get to talk about the machinery we want to sell. We get to talk about how we even want to communicate with our wholesale partners. And that's an important part, that, you know, what you want and what you find valuable or what's important to you, that can help you sort of direct where you want to go, I suppose. And Deanna, I'm going to have to ask the question again, aren't I?
I think I remember the question.
Oh my God.
I'll speak from, since we have competitors, I'll speak from a judging perspective a bit. If you want to go into judging, and actually, regardless if you want to go into competing and judging, it's good to do both, to be honest, because you get not the same year, but, you know, generally, you get such a perspective, you know. So if you judge you start to understand what the judge is looking for. So I'll say this to you because maybe now you want to compete, but maybe down the road you want to judge, just depends. So actually just reaching out to SCA, because there's calibrations that happen. You can join a calibration, you can come, you'll spend time with other judges, and the great thing is on that journey that you go on, you're not there, even as a newbie, you're not there kind of thrown in on the deep end. You're there with people who are going to be able to guide you and work with you, and the benefit to that is actually massive around your palate and around your understanding of kind of tasting and things. So in terms of sensory, it's a really great way to improve your skills as a coffee professional. As well as support the competition scene from a different way. Not everyone feels like they want to jump on a stage, and that's totally fine. It's another way to do it, because at least your back's turned from the audience, so you don't have to face anyone. So you know, that's. I mean, honestly, if you're interested, anyone that has judged or any of the SCA would be very open to chatting with you about the experience. The interesting thing is there's different things to judge as well. So, you know, Brewers Cup, there's Coffee and Good Spirits, there's Latte Art if you're a little bit like, well, my palate, ooh. If you're more interested in like checking if someone's weighed their coffee and has the right, and you can tell how much like, you know, coffee is sitting in a little pile, then you're definitely down that tech route, and that's brilliant because, you know, that is needed. So that is what I would say around judging. Around what I do. So what I do is a little bit... So I'm the COO for Saint Espresso and Saint Coffee Roasters, and I also have my own business, which is Sense at London. So it's basically a training and business development business. So when I say kind of how to get there, well, I did it step by step. So I took patience, and I made sure that I went through and learned everything. I spent time in each part of the industry. I worked in everything from being a barista through to roasting, through to green sourcing, and quality control, all of these sections. I think it's about patience, focus, and understanding that it is a journey. You can't speed up experience. Enjoy the journey.
Nice conclusion there. That was nice. I mean, yeah, you've said a lot of the how do you do competition or volunteering or anything. Just bite the bullet and do it. It can be a little bit scary jumping in. Obviously, there's big sensory pluses, but every time you compete, the judging calibration may be an amazing, well, my taste buds went from here to like here. And now I'm a Q grader, and that helped a lot. But for me, actually, so I was kind of veered into barista training before I went into roasting and QC and green buying and stuff. And I actually found that the practice of being on stage and doing barista routines and having to write barista routines and explain coffee concepts to people in a way that flowed, in a way that was understandable, and execute them at the same time. All of those skills, speaking to a room full of people without stuttering or stammering clearly, that practice really, really helped me when it came to barista training a group of people, because I had confidence speaking to a group. I had confidence that I could sort of write my thoughts down and then deliver them to people in a way that was engaging. And that really, really helped me deliver engaging coffee classes. So if that's even an avenue that you're thinking about, if you're like, I'm a barista training is maybe an avenue I want to go down. A stint in a competition will massively help your confidence in delivering all of that to a room full of people, and makes it a lot less scary. When you've already done it once, you can do it again, it's fine. Oh, yeah, go for it.
That's a really good point that from a sales point of view, like I've been working in sales a long time, if you are an ex-competitor, if you have finished 20th in the UK or whatever position it is, if you make the semi-finals, you are more, you know, if you're going into a job interview, you may have done SCA professional barista courses, but actually if you've competed or you are a judge or you are involved in this bigger body and entity, I mean, if I was looking for staff and we're looking to grow our team, that would be an important measure for me, that this person, because we all know the effort that goes into competing, and that kind of tells you a bit about their drive, tells you a little bit about their, as you just said, the ability to stand in front of people and deliver something. So there is, without putting pressure in that way, because as I said, if you went into judging instead of competing or volunteering, being part of that bigger body, bigger entity will, I think, categorically improve your chances of career advancement. And Roosa?
Well, how to do what I do, and I think this is from the coach perspective. I think Well, first you have to have experience. I think that it comes as given. You can't just be a coach if you don't know the competition. Like when it comes to Claire's like barista, I've always because I've been with barista competition now since 2018. Either seeing it from the side, well, I competed first in the barista competition in 2016, but like I was surrounded by 2 barista competitors, and then seeing what it takes to be on that side of the competition. I think that was very valuable lesson. And then when Claire asked me to coach her for the first time, I think that for me it was quite natural for me to do that, but it meant that I had to know the competition by this point. So I think that coaching is one of those a little bit weird things that because I think coaching is quite I'm not saying that it's a new thing, because a lot of the world champions have had coaches, and coaches is basically if Claire isn't doing something that she has to do, I'm the one who I need to know her routine like a back of my hand, because equally because I need to be the person to tell her that you didn't do that, or you didn't attempt your shots, or whatever it is. So
absolute sauce.
But that's what it takes. But then also I think that for me, specifically with our journey, I think part of it was that there is a question how do coaches sort of benefit from coaching? And I don't for me, to see someone else succeed obviously is the most rewarding thing ever. So you're kind of, for me, I suppose I try to be as selfless, is that the word? As possible, and then just give my everything to it. But I think coaching isn't necessarily the first thing that you want to be doing if competitions are new to you. But yeah, and I also you and Sierra were calling me, what were you calling me? Stage mom? Yeah. So also you have to be a certain type. I'm hopefully going to be coaching this. This coming season, I'm also going to be coaching elsewhere than in UK, and it's a great thing to have, because it means more connections and so on and so on and so forth. But yeah, you would have to know the competition. And just recently I coached Heidi just for a few times for the cup tasters, and she was just okay, next year you're coaching me the whole time, and I was like, okay, let's do it. But yeah, you need to have experience of the competition. And what was the other question?
I think it was kind of how you do what you do, and why would you do it? But I think
but if we weren't and then yeah. But if we talk about work, I'm the head of coffee and production in the Gentleman Baristas. I'm in charge of all of the coffee. My main job is green buying, overlooking the QC, overlooking the roasting, overlooking the production and everything. And I think this is also something that just like Diana said, it takes time. I've been in the industry for 12 years or something. So yeah, it's patience and time.
I would say if you aren't in a position to coach, literally being emotional support for someone competing is really helpful. If it's I know you've been training, how many days a week were you training running up to Worlds?
Full-time job to do at the same time.
And doing, yeah.
We did sorry, I forgot the Brittany mic wasn't on. We trained every weekend from nationals to Worlds. I had 1 day off a week, and then at least 2 times after work as well.
Yeah, I was recently just looking at our production schedule and everything, and I was kind of thinking what has happened during the past 9 months? Yeah, because it was the heats, then the semifinals, then the finals, then the getting ready for the Worlds and stuff. So yeah.
So my sort of thought process for that is that could just be going out for dinner on one of those days that you're not competing and talking to someone about not coffee. That's really important. Will and I were talking about this the other day about having a healthy not competition part of your competition season. So I know Paul, who was on your podcast, was talking about running and how like that helped him. But have something else. Like I play really noisy, horrible music that your parents would hate, and that's like my thing that I can do, and I've done that for a long time. But when I'm doing that, I'm not thinking about what is the best ratio for this espresso milk drink. But when I am I can go into the zone and like do that and train. So if you aren't chief washer-upper or like shoulder rubber or let's go and watch a terrible film together, it's Christmas, you know.
But so yeah, and this is what we were talking about earlier today, was that like, yes, you might not be able to coach, but that doesn't mean that you can't support. So like Claire had her partner with us, and like when I was just like, Claire would go and like cry against his shoulder.
You literally,
So
that's the
also
second time we've
need
talked
two
about
nieces
tears. So
apart.
I feel like there may have been some tears. So we're going to do one last question. I believe did you get any questions come through, or are we good to just to wrap with? Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. Yeah, rad. So yeah, the last question is what from I mean, we kind of touched on this, I guess, but from the first time you've competed to now, what do you think is like one of the biggest moments of sort of change? I'm going to read the question better than how I've just said it. Oh yeah, something that has happened that may not have happened. You know, if you hadn't have, I mean, like I can say from a very personal level, there's a bunch of people here that I absolutely categorically would not have met if I was smashing coffees out in a cafe, having a great time, which is a wonderful thing to be doing. But in terms of, like, I definitely wouldn't be doing the job I'm doing today. I wouldn't be hosting a panel talk with a bunch of legends. You know, I wouldn't have gone in that direction. So for me, from stepping foot on stage for the very first time and doing potentially a pretty rough job of it, I'm now talking about it and encouraging other people to do it, which I definitely wouldn't have done had I have not done that. So what do you say, Will?
Yeah.
John podcast over here.
Well, I'd quite like to echo what you said, actually, because prior to my first competition in 2018, like, I'd never sort of stood on a stage and talked to people before. I'd stood on a dark stage in a back corner and played guitar whilst other people sang. But, like, I couldn't, stand in front of people and talk. And now I did it again, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a podcast. And then I'm here, and then there's this room full of people sat in a circle. And, like, if I'd never competed before, oh, Oli, I can't do your panel. No, well, for starters, you wouldn't have asked me to come up. So
all right, Will, do you fancy coming on this panel?
It's getting a bit
We're gonna sit in a
existential
circle.
now.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, just giving me confidence to, like, be confident in myself that I know what I'm talking about, and be happy to, stand or sit in front of people and talk about those things confidently. And yeah, it's built up a lot of confidence.
I think it's probably just like the people I've met. So just some of the incredible bonds and the people I've met and the journeys. Like, I remember competing with Claire way back in the day, like with so many memories. And that's the same time that like Maxwell was competing and like Dale, like there's these memories, and it's like all of these kind of, it's the memories. I think for me, all those memories are the most valuable things that I wouldn't have if I hadn't have competed.
I think the biggest thing for me was when I did my first competition, I kind of realized that there was actually a whole industry. Like, I was a barista, and I kind of knew nothing, and I entered, and I was like, oh, what the heck is potato defect? What is green coffee? How does this work? I was woefully unprepared. But it made me realize, like, oh, there's all these other jobs I could do, as well as being a barista. And I think it's kind of the reason I'm still here. Because if I hadn't done the competition, it might have taken me 10 years to figure out what green coffee was. I think it's the fact that it opened up, it like cracked the nut of the industry for me and made me realize there's more to it, and I can stay in it and actually have a career in it, and not just my sort of barista job that I thought I might have to give up and go do my actual degree, which I didn't want to do.
I think for me, on top of everything that you have said, because I echo each one of you, I think that for me also, by just competing, I realized that I have got a love for the competitions. So I'm a very competitive person naturally, But like when I found that like I can compete in something that I love and to like, I was like, perfect. So I found the love for the competitions.
Okay, so I think that's us. The idea being, yeah, we maybe throw out a couple of questions in case there's anyone's being brave and wants to. Oh, Cam's going to mic you. Oh no.
That's all right.
Sounds like
I'm
Jerry
just,
Springer.
yeah.
Jerry. Oh, Nat's in.
I have a more of a like a question for the people who are going to be compete for the first time. Without shadow of a doubt, if you're very confident, you're prepared, you're going to be on a stage, you're going to compete. But for those people who might just have kind of like emotional roller coaster, who may not be able to put out the gut and just be like quit on the day that they're supposed to be competing, what would the advice would be for those people who have gone through that cycle?
Do you mean more so for the kind of the worry or the anxiety?
Yeah, the worry, like the anxiety might kick in.
So it's really annoying that a very horrible game show popularized this phrase, but every time I've competed, I've sat to my, like, you said you do a funny dance when you've got your mic on and you're ready to go. I literally just said to myself, it is what it is, and like, oh god, it makes me feel like I'm watching Geordie Shore or something now, but you know, if you've done the work, if you work in coffee in this room and you've made the effort to come here, I'm confident you know how to make espresso. I'm confident you know how to steam milk, and I'm confident you know how to say, if a customer say, what's the coffee you're using, that you could tell them what the coffee is. So that bit you know, and the only person that's really stopping you from doing that is in your own head of some concern that you're not going to pour a 6-tier tulip. Like, it's about making nice, frothy, milky coffees and having a nice time. Like, all the work you put in, Bruce and I were chatting earlier, you're saying, like, if you really commit and you really put in all that energy beforehand, the standing on the stage bit's the easiest bit, I think, because it's the fastest as well. Like, you spend hours and days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks preparing for 7 minutes and then 15 minutes. So the standing on stage bit should be the easiest bit. So just, if you're not enjoying that bit, and you just, there'll be some bits that you think are a bit naff, and you'll have a good day of training and a bad day, and sometimes the coffee will taste good, and sometimes you'll forget how to steam milk. But if you're not ultimately doing it and enjoying the bit that you're doing on stage, every time I've competed, I've smiled and made jokes after like an idiot, like trying to go, well, yeah, I've just spent loads of time doing this, and now I don't have to do it anymore. It's quite nice. So yeah, my advice would be just to remember why you're doing it in the first place, and it's meant to be enjoyable.
I'm going to dive in with some practical tips, because I've been there. I did the last Barista Champs really sick and almost fainted before I started I'm pretty sure I had COVID looking back on it, but I almost fainted going on stage. The biggest advice I can give for new people who are worried is do as many dress rehearsal runs as you can with the exact amount of people you'll have judging you in that room already. The first time you do that, it's terrifying. Also, mix up the people that are sitting through it. It wasn't the same for me doing a run through for Rosa as it was doing a run through for Diana when Diana came. I was terrified, again, as if I'd never done it when you judged me. So do as many dry runs as you can, because that will help you get the nerves out of your system, because then on the day you're like, I've done this already. Try and not even register that the audience is there. It's you and those 4 sensory judges, and that's it. And you've already done it 10, 15 times before. You can do it again. Also, don't drink too much coffee in the morning. Don't drink anything if you can avoid it, because it makes you much more shaky. You don't need the adrenaline as much as you might need coffee. Don't do it, I promise.
I think my advice would be, on top of like practice, and practice more, is surround yourself with people who can calm down those nerves. Because at the Worlds, for example, there was someone who didn't compete because they were just like, they basically just said, my mental capacity can't get me through that routine. And as a coach, I was like, where is that person's coach? Because this is where the coach kicks in and is like, you're hype mom, you're hype person, you're everything. And then you're like the person, like from the coach's perspective, you want someone to be there to be like, you can do it. You can really do it, because like even with her,
It helps.
it helped a lot. So I would definitely and ask someone to be there for you, and like really, or like someone who knows you very well. Like for example, when I went to the Worlds for cup tasters, and if anyone have competed in cup tasters, it's all in your head, right? So I had my partner who would be like doing everything, but then he would be the one who would be literally saying to me like, honestly, like you can go, like do it, you can do this. And then like I was like, okay, I can do this, let's go. So yeah, you want someone like that, because the nerves will always be there, but if there is someone who can, you know, be around you, then it helps a lot.
I'd just like to add, if you don't do well, nobody remembers.
Nobody remembers.
So true.
And you can just compete again next year and do like 3 places better and just keep working at it. If you don't do well, no one remembers.
Yeah, I think on the back of that, like one of the things to remember is that, like the way I'd like to say it, simple 3 words really, or simple few words, I don't know how many words that is actually. There's no failure, it's only feedback.
Reach.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing so much to us, and I know that you've all achieved a lot than most of us in the room, but like how did it all start? Like how do you get into competition? Like for me, I'm a barista, like part-time barista, but how do you get the idea? How do you kickstart all of that followed?
That's a very good question. The first time I competed, I got an email from the operations director of the company saying, what competition is everyone entering? And that was sent to like all the staff. That the second year I competed, 5 of the 6 finalists were from that company. So there was culture in that company at that time to we go big. So for me, the first was a little push in the back, like maybe you should do this. And I actually remember thinking, there's no way, like baby barista, like I can't do that. I'm watching people do all this and they're way better than I am. And it kind of snowballed. Like did it once and was like, yeah, I think we've all probably said, never doing that again after we've competed, like so, vividly. And then like 2 months later, you're like, oh, I've got a bit of an idea. Oh, that coffee's quite nice. Maybe I could do that. In terms of then where do you go from there? I think it's either a coffee or an idea. So if you, Will and I spoke about this at some point, can't remember when it was. Will had a great idea. Like he wanted to do his vintage idea. We spoke about it ages ago and crushed it. Did a great job with that. But you needed the coffee and the idea, and so it kind of made sense. I've had loads of ideas, loads of weird ideas, some better than others. I think if you can pitch, you can decide which road you want to go down. So let's say you really, really want to compete, and the place you work, you can speak to the roaster that supplies you and say, I'd really like to do a barista competition. Is there anyone available that could talk to me about coffee? If for some reason that door isn't open, I'm probably speaking to about 10, 12 different roasters within or people who work for Green Coffee or something that would be like, post on your social media, tag the SCA, they'll repost it, and you will get, your DMs will light up. People will be like, we want to support you, we want to supply you with coffee. Then it could be that you taste the coffee and you're like, okay, that's amazing, it reminds me of this. That could just take you in that direction. So I've coached a little bit around ideas, and I think the first time you compete, you should talk about something you really, really care about. It could be quite personal. I probably shouldn't talk about this because it's weird, but I'm planning on competing again next year, and I have an entire routine planned around the theme of control, and that is based around me controlling, technical stuff, but also controlling anxiety and feelings of, can you do something to the ability you want to do it? And for me, at the position I am in personally and professionally, I want to talk about that. It might not score the best. I think the coffee will score really well, but I'm actually going into next year with, I think this routine is really good. I think the idea is really good and the coffee's delicious. That's why I've decided to be an absolute lunatic and do it again. But I've said it now, I've got to do it. But I think you have to have that degree of motivation. So if you said to me today, I want in, I'd be like, right, let's go. Let's find your coffee. What kind of coffees do you like? And it will, what's the word? When you gather a snowball, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger very quickly. So yeah, my advice would be find someone who can support you. The easiest route would be definitely within your business or the roaster you have a direct contact with. Does anyone else want to add into that?
Yeah, I do actually, if that's all right.
Speak to Cam.
What I'd like to add, if anyone of you who sits here today feels that there are massive obstacles for you to get into competition, you don't know where to start, I don't know how to obtain the equipment or any of those questions, please message us. We will help you. So what we need from you is the passionate drive and want to do it. We will match you up with the best route of helping you get to competition.
Lovely.
Can I add to that? Like, the SCA in the UK has done such an amazing job of reducing the barrier to entry. Like, you don't need your own grinder. Malkonig have got one. There's an espresso machine there. Chimbley have done it. If you've not got a coffee and you don't know which roaster to speak to, Grumpy Mule support it, and you can just message Grumpy Mule and be like, I'm thinking of competing, and they're like, great, we've already sourced 4 coffees, what do you want? You can have it. So the barrier to entry is you pay a small entrance fee and you decide, yes, I want to go and do it, and then either the company you work for is like, okay, well, support you in that, or it depends what the company's like. Maybe you book a holiday so you can have the day to go and compete or whatever. But especially in the UK, the community support is amazing. I think anybody sat in any of these chairs, you could send us a message on Instagram being like, I'm thinking of competing, or I've got an idea, and I'm sure any of us will hear you out and give you feedback.
I had that from a lot of previous colleagues. I would send them scripts. They would send them heavily edited, lots of red. Why are you saying this? This is stupid. So as long as if you're prepared to take on feedback, I think you'll go real quickly. But yeah, just to echo what Will said, there is, with how easy it is to connect with people on social media, I think it's quite easy now to connect with the support side of it. As long as if you put your hand up and say, I'll put the work in. That's what I think anyone wants to hear from either a coffee roastery or a coach or the other people that are putting whether it's financial support or equipment support. If they're looking at someone that's like, you could be the next British champion if you get the right support, then yeah, 100%. I've got a question over there. Go on, Cam.
So I was going to ask about accessibility, but you kind of covered that. So I'm actually going to ask this one, the future of competitions and inclusivity, for example, disability. So how do you see that expanding for people who might use sign language, who have other disabilities, to entry into competition?
Great question. As far as I understand the rules, you can have an interpreter on stage. I would assume that would cover sign language as well, which would actually be kind of magical, watching someone sign with their routine. I'd be a fan of that. From an accessibility point of view, I look at a lot of the equipment side of things. So if you are less able and you need a grinder that has built-in scales, there are options within some of the sponsorships. Things like puck presses, to try and look at what tools are there available to be physically easier to work with. But I know this might be more of a Cam and Gratz question, but I know there's a lot within the SCA. There is the plinth for Sierra last year, because she was like, this stage is really tall, and Sierra's only wee.
Vertically challenged.
Yeah, and she looked like a queen on her platform, as she is. So I think generally, if there was something that someone was wanting to compete and they felt that they had a particular barrier that they were going to struggle to overcome, I would reach out to the SCA 100%, so that there can be a dialogue, I guess. And Graz is going to lead in on that, I think.
To add very quickly to it, we keep trying way to reduce issues with accessibility in the UK. One which is the print we're talking about. A lot of the decision around rules and actually enter a competition, what happens if, then are with SCA Global. So there's a committee meeting every so often, and they review rules, regs, and what we do to open up the competition to inclusivity and diversity. It's small steps, but also Oli mentioned that. I think technology is also helping us. The pack presses of this world will certainly a step towards the right directions. So the short answer is, I think the future is good. We're working on it. Perhaps not as quickly as some people may want, or we may want, but it's happening.
I think maybe to touch on, just to sort of round that off, I guess, if we're doing events like this, we can ask those questions, and then that stimulates conversation around these things so that, like, you know, I'm an able-bodied white male. Like, I'm pretty good in coffee competitions. I'm pretty well represented. But, you know, for people to see non-people like me winning barista competitions is super important. So there's a visibility side from that side of things, but also maybe there's people out there that feel that they couldn't compete because of an accessibility issue. And if they are watching this or around the dialogue like this, please, I want that person to feel comfortable enough to say, I don't know if you've thought about this because of your, I don't want to say it, but because of your privilege, that you haven't been aware that that's a problem for me. Because for me, I'm more than happy to, like in my professional and personal career, if someone says something, I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, I did not know that, because I'm, you know, blinkers on and such. I try to be pretty open-minded as a human, but, you know, there are things that we just miss because of our upbringing or whatever. So, yeah, thank you for asking, because I think that's an important conversation we should all be having. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes, man in the middle. You must be warm.
Very warm, actually.
Yeah.
My ears are burning. I just had a quick question. Obviously, when you're competing, you can come across so many phenomenal ideas, so many phenomenal coffees, but how do you know when to stop?
No one on this stage has competed once. It's weirdly not a one and done thing. You kind of get a bit of a bug for some of these things. I think the most coffees I've ever cupped was 30 for picking a particular coffee. And that year, it was a blind tasting, and 3 other people from the same company picked the same coffee on a blind tasting, which is annoying, and I ended up not using it. You know, that's that. In terms of ideas, I think you need to start talking about them. Josh, who's up there, is a part of Blossom and is a sensory judge, has had to listen to a lot of my terrible ideas when I was talking about getting the judges to meditate for 20 seconds. And the look on his face told me I should not do that idea. So sometimes, like, soundboarding things with people will cut your 10 ideas into 2 very quickly. And as Claire and Roosa said, doing them, sometimes you go, oh, this is really not good. Like, the ideas that fit well really feel good quite quickly, and the clunky stuff starts to appear. And then sometimes from a coffee point of view, you might cup a coffee and it be unbelievable, and you start brewing it and you think this is not going to do well on stage. We were talking about coffees that you might brew at home that are wonderful high acidity coffees that we love and, you know, want to drink regularly. You take them onto the competition stage and you look at that score sheet, and that's not always what, you know, that's not going to do well. So my shorter answer, I guess, would be you have those conversations with people and go, I'm thinking about doing this, and honestly, for every good idea, I've had 10 terrible ones. I think locking in the coffee feels a bit easier. Sometimes that's done by, like Will's idea of doing vintages and things. Sometimes you are taken down a certain road with what you want to do. The coffee I'm looking to serve in February, when the heats are, a little bit of knowledge, is the coffee that's in that hopper over there. It's an anaerobic, honey anaerobic Katuai. And I tasted it on our pre-shipments, and it was just unbelievable. And I was like, I want to compete with that. And I think that actually was one of the reasons why I decided I was going to compete again, because I had the coffee, and then I figured out an idea that fit to it.
I think you also have to be very realistic of your timeline. So because if you think about that your competition is, let's say, in the end of January, when do you have to roast your coffee? When do you have to choose the coffee? When do you have to have your routine? You basically just like start going from the deadline like behind, and then you basically have got that deadline for your ideas, for your coffee, and everything that you're basically doing. That then, yes, it can change a little bit on the way, but you basically, by a certain point, you already have to have everything in sort of in your mind field that this is the coffee that I'm going with, this is what I'm going to be talking about, and this is the competition that I'm going to be doing, or something like that. It helps you make a decision and move on to the next thing. Because there are so many things that will change on the journey, but like at least you have got that red thread to start for it, and then like what you're doing is just like, okay, I'm start A, and I need to get to C, what's going to happen in there, but like at least you know the timeline, and it has to be realistic because yeah, depending on the competition, you have to roast your coffee, rest it, yada, yada, yada. So be realistic.
Any other questions? I feel like that's... Oh, sneaky. Sneaky one.
So if you're in a coffee competition, if you're listening to a presentation, you might hear someone use a lot of terminology that might be borrowed from wine, or you might hear a lot of biology or chemistry. When it comes to signature drinks, there's things like a blueberry ferment or freeze macerated milk. I think, where are you looking outside of coffee to find that information? Because I've never heard that behind a bar. I'm
going to drop a truth bomb and be like, most people look at what everyone did last year and then the year before, and then like comb through those ideas. And you pretty much can guarantee someone will ferment something with something for a signature drink. Altering the milk has become, it takes one person to do it. And then we've seen cryo distillation, was it? If any of you are into more of your science, like I heard this on when it was the Australian Nationals. And again, talking back to following people because of they won a competition, I've looked at who won the Australian national competition, looked at this, heard about this weird thing, and looked into it and was like, this is really confusing, I don't understand it. Then someone posted a more knowledgeable blog on it, and I looked into it there. But a lot of the ideas are kind of borrowed. I think it does come from the industry that you surround yourself in, or if you're friends with someone who works in cocktails or works in wine, you can definitely see some crossovers that kind of naturally come from there. That works into your skill set. That is literally my worst nightmare. I'm not very good at making cocktails. I don't mind making them. I'm not great at it. And I'm not a science person. So I would not go into that side of it because I wouldn't get any joy of doing it. But if you are naturally, like I know, Claire, you're pretty good at making cocktails. I've seen you make some pretty tasty. Future Six champion, I'm saying, calling it here. If you will lean into that skill set that you have or that your friends or family have, I think. Naturally, it's just potentially going to give you an angle that not many people are going to do, I think. Anyone add to that?
But you don't need to know those terms to compete, because those terms don't give you points. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Some of these things are, there is a couple of funny coffee memes that talk about some of the things that have been said on stage that are kind of madness. This will make this happen, and it's really, I don't think that does that, but sometimes it gets a tick in a box, so sometimes you say it. So yeah, maybe not, I'd say echoes Roosa's, but it's not something to get stuck on. If you can make a very, very tasty espresso and a very, very tasty espresso milk drink and a signature drink, you don't need all the bells and whistles. Kind of just make it taste good, make it good. Okay, so there's one little bit of tasty information to finish up on today, and that is we can officially announce 2023 UKBC heats. There are going to be 2 heats in cities that have never had a UKBC heat, which is super exciting for the community. There's going to be 1 heat in a city that has been regularly asking for it to return, which I think is really exciting. There's going to be a London heat. You know, there's always London, isn't there? Yeah. Blooming London. But the most important one is the first heat is going to be in sunny Manchester. North represent and all that. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but am I allowed to say the month? Next year? Am I allowed to say? Did you say May? It's definitely not May.
We have a couple of... Sorry.
Got a microphone.
You can say whatever you want, really.
Oh, God. That's not advisable when I've got a microphone.
We have pretty much firmed up the dates. We have pretty much firmed up the venues. We have a couple of bits that need to be confirmed back to us.
Okay.
There's no secrecy here. We're just not holding back for this big reveal. We are hoping to have those 2 questions answered by next week. So we're hoping to properly announce next week. But it's 95% there, isn't it?
Maybe. Go on, Rob. Go on, Rob. Rob's in.
The easiest thing to say is that there will be 1 heat each week of February.
There we go. Big mic drop moment. But these are expensive, so we'll
and
just
randomly, we talked about Bristol Champs. Is there going to be heats for Brewers?
Ooh.
We're looking at that. So I can't say anything about Brewers at the moment. But for BC, there will be a heat every week in February. So South Coast, Manchester, Scotland and Wales. So, but next week we're hoping to have more detail. We're just waiting for a couple of venues to just confirm last few things. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting. There will be 14 places available for each one, 5 heats. So that's yeah, that's right, 14 times 5. So that's 70 places available. So sign up. We'll release them as soon as we can, but it will be February. Finals, looking at 31st of March and the 1st of April. So unfortunately, there isn't a big gap in between, but the week after that is Easter. The week after that is London Coffee Festival. Then after that, you've got all the May bank holidays and coronations and all that stuff. So we've been a little bit forced to do it that way in terms of what everything else is going on in the world.
A shorter gap at that point means a longer gap for UK champion to Worlds.
Yeah.
We'd always lean into being shorter this side.
Worlds is June, and we wanted to at least have 2 months, really, that you can prep for Worlds, whoever wins.
So if you are looking to get hold of a Cimbali espresso machine or a Malconic grinder, we have one set up here. If you're thinking you're competing, no, I'm gonna make you do it now. Not really. We have that here. You can reach out to the team at Cimbali. If you're on the live stream, you can reach out to Cimbali. You can reach out to Malconic. You can reach out to every sponsor. They're here to support you, whether you're first time or you competed several times. And yeah, lastly, thank you everyone for turning out. It's been a really good event, and hopefully I can make you all a brew soon. Thanks a lot.